this view the good view? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everybody. We are happy to see you. It is Friday, the 27th, and today we are going to be talking about how to market your business now that so much has changed. So we'll give a minute or two here just to give folks a chance to log on, and then we'll be getting started here momentarily. Meanwhile, while we're waiting some folks to jump on, these days, I think I'm always interested in things that are going to make me feel better, laugh. And so I'm going to share my screen for just a second here. Taylor, I didn't mention this to you, but I think this is pretty funny. There's an article that I saw today, and this is just the kind of stuff you just can't make up. Nobody was there were some minor injuries. Nobody was hurt seriously. But apparently I can't remember exactly where this was, but the police officer was called out for a potential burglary, and was out there on a farm. And if you're just joining us, I'm just sharing something that's has nothing related to do with marketing, but it's just funny. We could all use a good laugh. And so officer gets out there, and he a cow distracts his dog, and the dog bites the cow. And so the officer tases the dog in an attempt to get him to let go of the cow. And then the cow kicks the police officer. So anyway, all right, there's enough of that banter. Let's go ahead and jump into why we're here today. So I'm Steve Phipps. I'm president, owner, founder of Wayfind Marketing. And this is my host, Annie Laurie Walters, who is a member of the Wayfind team. And Annie Laurie, today I'm really looking forward to this because in the midst of where we are and everything that's happening, people are wondering, and reasonably so, how do I market my business now that so many things have changed? A lot of people are used to going to networking events and marketing and promoting their business in a particular way. And now so many things have changed. And so we're going to cover 4 things today. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is, what does your customer need now? Then we're going to talk about how to change your messaging. And then after that, we're going to talk about, how do you stay visible? How do you stay in front of your audience right now? And then number 4 is thinking about the long term, because there's a lot of opportunity, maybe not right now, but certainly coming out of this, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So to anybody that's watching us, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to make comments, or if you have questions for us, please feel free to add those. Would love to interact with anybody who is watching this right now. And we're glad you're here. So let's go ahead, Annie Laurie, and let's jump in on number 1. So Annie Laurie, from what you're seeing out there, what are you seeing in terms of people, business owners? How would you describe kind of where they are right now?
Well, I think people are just in survival mode. They're doing their best to keep the lights on and just taking one day at a time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I saw a quote from Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, yesterday. And in the interview, now Facebook, I think 55,000 employees, all working from home, and they've seen a significant increase in the number of people using their platforms and their tools. So that in and of itself is challenging. But he said, we're just over here, we're just trying to keep the lights on. And I think that's a really good description for where a lot of people are right now. So how do you think that affects how we relate to our customers?
Well, I think that the number one thing is that our customers need to know that we're not here to sell them right now, that we understand what they're going through. We have empathy for the stressors in their lives and the things that have been disrupted because of this coronavirus and this lockdown, the uncertainty, the fear. This is a time where I think we're just moving through those stages of grief, really. And we need to be sensitive to just the amount of stress and pressure that everyone is under right now.
Absolutely. Now, something I want to show, right now, a lot of people are really grieving. And, I've probably learned about this in psychology class, but if you think about, a lot of people are experiencing loss, a lot of change and transition. And so there's all sorts of things that people are feeling as we think about our customers and our prospects and who we're marketing to. I think it's absolutely essential. We got to know where they are now versus where they were even 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so a lot of people are still processing. There's a lot of frustration and anger. And as I talk to more people, I talk to a lot of business owners. And this week I've talked with a lot of business owners. I think people are starting to get more into this idea of acceptance. They're sort of, okay, things have changed. How do I adapt? What do I do with that? And so as we think about how we interact with our customers, if you've worked with us here at Wayfind in any capacity, you've probably heard us talk about story and why that's so important for communicating. And one of the things, so here's some tactical things that you can do when you think about who your customer is. Think about the problems that they're facing. The fact is, a lot of people are working from home now that have never had to do that before. They've got kids around them. So all of this plays into what your customer needs. And really, these ideas are not new. These are foundational strategic principles. But when you think about your customer, what is it that they want? And what are the problems that they're facing right now? And those problems exist at 3 levels. The first level is what we call the external, and that's just the obvious problem. Now, for a lot of people, the problem is, how do I keep my business moving forward? How do I provide service to my customers? How do I take care of my team that's now remote and virtual, and we've never done that before? So in the context of what you do, think about what is the problem they're facing. Number 2 is the emotion, what we call internal, and that's how are they feeling about the problem, because that's really where people are living, especially right now. And the number 3 is what we call the philosophical, and that's what do people believe about it. It's things like, man, this should be easier, depending on where they are, kind of in the process. Man, this shouldn't be happening to me. Or other people, if they're taking more of a sort of a growth mindset, they could be looking at this and going, okay, I should be able to do something with where I am. So, Annie, what are your thoughts in terms of just why is it important for us to understand the emotion that people are feeling right now?
Well, because we want to be effective communicators. And in order to do that, we need to be able to meet people where they are and speak to them in a way that is going to actually resonate, because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people saying the exact same things over and over and over again. How many emails have you gotten from brands that are telling you what they're doing to respond? And that's all well and good. You kind of have to check that box as a organization or a company and send out that message. But when you think about story and you think about the internal and the external problems that your customers are facing, you will discover something different to say that they're actually going to want to listen to and pay attention to. And then once you get their attention, I think then you have a real opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to, this is a good transition into number 2, and that's going to be, how do we need to change our messaging, or maybe even sometimes it's changing our products or our services to adapt. The reality is that a lot of people have services or products that can help people. And so if you have a product or service that can help someone, they might need what you offer right now. Now, some people, maybe what you offer, they're not going to buy. For instance, we need a new stovetop. Ours went out not too long ago. And, I had plans a couple of weekends ago to go and get a new one and put it in. Well, you know what? I'm kind of holding off on that for just a little bit. We've got a temporary solution that's getting us through. But so sometimes people are holding off. But one of the things that I think is important is you think about your messaging. Now's not the time to be talking to people about thriving. unless your audience, maybe they're in a spot where that is the appropriate message. But for a lot of people, it's really, again, it's that idea of how do you help them survive? How do you help them solve the problem that they have now? Elor, have you seen any good or bad examples of messaging?
Yeah.
You know, you've mentioned getting some emails. What are your thoughts on, you know, some of those emails that just kind of sound boilerplate?
Well, yeah. I mean, no one's reading them at this point. I mean, because they all say the same thing, you know. So I think that there's a lot of like, you know, click, 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 delete all, you know. But I will say, and without going into a lot of detail, there are two different competing brands that I receive messaging from. One of those brands has been proactive on the I'm getting an email before I need it or just in time, you know,
Hmm.
with relevant, helpful, reassuring messaging. The other brand that's the competing brand, I've received um, late messaging from, inconsistent. One message may be very thorough and reassuring, while the next one is like 4 sentences and like no emotion whatsoever. Like it
Hmm.
almost feels like some whiplash, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It feels very like they're just reacting, and it gives the impression that the people who are driving this brand are not cohesive. They're not unified and on the same page with what they're saying. Whereas this competing brand that's been proactive, sending these just in time, reassuring messages that actually are helpful and actionable, it just demonstrates a unity and a sense of coordination that they aren't they are whether or not they are freaking out they are presenting a front of calm and reassuring, like they're stable, whereas this other brand that's like the inconsistency of messaging kind of is communicating this instability to where I'm like, I'm not sure I'm going to want to spend my money with you because you kind of are acting like you don't know what you're doing right now, like, you know what I mean? And we all
Yeah.
have that feeling to some degree that no one knows how to handle this. None of us have lived through something like this before, but the businesses and the brands and organizations that are rallying, getting on the same page, having, you know, a single point of contact, consistency and timing, like those are the ones that are going to instill that confidence that's going to
Mhm.
keep their customers, you know, assured that they aren't, you know, going to crumble under the pressure. Honestly, I know that sounds a little a little
Well,
extreme, but you know, I think your customers want to have that sense of like you're doing what you can to keep the ship running, and when you have all that inconsistency.
well, and I think a big thing, and you're right, I think from the example that you were just giving, there's got to be consistency when we're communicating with our customers, with our team, when we're communicating, even with prospects. People are still buying, companies are still buying, people are still looking for solutions. I've talked with a couple of business owners this week who have reached out to me because they want to talk about marketing. They're viewing this time strategically, but you want to have that consistency of messaging through all your channels with your customers, with your own audience. And a lot of it right now is just be human. You know, don't send out messaging that feels opportunistic or that is taking advantage of an opportunity. Be helpful. And that goes back to the first thing we talked about is know your customers, know how they're feeling, relate to that. And even to the point of sharing your own thoughts and maybe like, hey, we're in this, we know that there's a lot that we don't know. But here's what we're doing. Here's how we want to try to help you. And if I haven't said this already, if you haven't picked up the phone and talked to some of your customers, if you haven't sent emails just to check in on people, that's a great way just to do a pulse check. How are people feeling? How are they viewing this? I think some people are just hunkering down and just kind of holding on until the storm passes. Some people, though, are taking advantage of this opportunity. They're looking at it and recognizing that, hey, business is my revenue is down. It's going to be down for at least the short term. But how do I use this time to put my business in a good position to move forward? And so I want to give one good example. So if you're in Memphis, Jay Brooks Coffee, fantastic coffee, and as good as the coffee is, the guys that own and run the business are even better. And so I got this email. I'm going to share this. John Pittman. He's the owner. His son, David. Great guys. So I didn't tell them I was going to share this. I don't know if they're watching today or not. But anyway, got this email from them yesterday, and it just says Jay Brooks is going on offense, and they've got this cool little graphic, and they're just kicking coronavirus in the head. And the essence of this is, they acknowledge, hey, we're walking this tightrope, honoring health and hygiene while keeping our community fueled. So these guys provide coffee, grocery stores. They provide coffee to a lot of restaurants, which of course that part of the business is slowed down significantly. And they said this is what they're doing. I love what they're doing. I emailed back, said, guys, this is a great idea. What they're doing is they are giving 10% of all their online revenue. So not just profit, 10% of all their online revenue to local groups here in Memphis that are experiencing hardship as a result of the pandemic. And the next thing that they've done is they've asked for however many people they've sent this email to, they've asked, hey, who are some groups locally that you feel like would benefit from this? So I think this is a great example of some messaging that is hopeful, that recognizes the challenges that we're all facing, and they're doing something proactive. They want to give back. They want to contribute, and they're involving their customers in that, which the coffee that I'm drinking now is from Jay Brooks. So thanks, guys. So that's a good example. Now, I want to use that to springboard into, well, let me say one more thing. And this idea of story, and Eli, we talk about this a lot. The idea of as a business, whether you're the owner, whether you're a leader within the business, your brand is what we call the guide. And if you think about stories, there are usually a few types of characters that you will see in most stories. Of course, you have the hero, which in our context, in the business context, your customer is always the hero of the story. The story is always about them. And another character that we see in a lot of movies and stories is the guide. The guide is your business, your brand. So in Star Wars, you're Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and your customers are Luke. And so the guide is there to help the hero. So in this particular capacity, we really have an opportunity to try to encourage and help. And even if that's not, even if that's helping connect people to other resources, just again, we've got an opportunity to be human, communicate, hope, offer encouragement, avoid the cliches. There's so many words that we're just hearing over and over and over again. Unprecedented, just we're in this together, and those things have their place, but don't just use the words and the phrases that you're hearing everybody else use. But the next thing is you think about your customers. What do they need now? Pick up the phone, call them, think about the different levels of the problems and challenges they're facing. Think about your messaging. Do you need to change it? Does your website need to change? Does how and what you're communicating need to change and adapt? It probably does. But then the next thing is how do you stay visible? So, Larry, you're on social media a lot. So what are you seeing brands that you follow? Are they communicating on social media? You mentioned emails. What all are you seeing in terms of how people are communicating?
Well, I'm seeing all kinds of things, and I also know what I'm not seeing. And so I think what I want to say here is that there are three things that are really important to keep in mind right now when it comes to staying visible, and they are consistency, transparency, and being proactive. or innovating, I am seeing some brands leverage social media in ways I've never seen them leverage it. And
Hmm.
I'm seeing them be really creative. And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, why weren't you doing this all along? Like, this is really useful. This is helpful." How many brands that are not, you know, afraid to go out there and try something new. I mean, Wayfind marketing, we've never done a live webcast before until this happened, but it's given us an opportunity to stretch our legs in some areas that we have thought about, dreamed about, but never really had the opportunity to try. I'm seeing brands try things specifically on social
Hmm.
media, regular check-ins, you know, like presidents, CEOs, leaders, brands and organizations alike that are talking to me, and they're saying really helpful things, and I'm paying attention to them in ways that I never have before. I hope that a lot of brands will stick with that, but it's the consistency. It's I'm seeing them regularly. It's the transparency, like you were saying, like they are sharing, how's this impacting me? How do I feel about it? Like they're not afraid to talk about the emotional side and be real and authentic. Like people want that transparency. And then third, they want to see a proactive response, whether that's given back to the community or repackaging what they offer to make it more accessible to you while you're on lockdown. So those are some things that I think that are really helping distinguish the brands that are taking advantage of this time to continue moving the ball down the field.
That's good. Because you're absolutely right. I'm seeing a lot more people go live. And to your point, Annie Laurie, the whole reason that we started this live stream is because I was trying to think through what can we do, how can we help, how can we encourage, and really the two things that we're trying to do through these live streams is two things. We want to encourage people. You're not alone. No, you don't have all the answers. Nobody does, but we can work on this. We can collaborate. But to encourage, and then the other is to equip, and that's thinking through what are tactical, practical things that we can do based on where we are. There's so many things that we cannot control, yet there are things that we can do. There are things that I can make the decision. I'm going to do this or I'm not. And I think you're absolutely right. Now's the time maybe to try something new. So many people are moving online now. Video. I'm seeing more brands. I'm seeing this consistently on Instagram, where more people are going live more regularly. And so you've got to think through, where are my customers? How can I reach them now? Uh, you know, uh, Companies and businesses that have relied on sales and face-to-face sales and face-to-face networking. Well, you know what? That's not there. We've got to adjust. We've got to do something different. So think about your customers. Where are they? How can you reach them? And so a couple of practical things. Are you emailing? Are you sending things out on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis? Are you on, again, whichever social channels your audience is on, are you there? And what I would say is, I want to go back to what you said a minute ago, Annie Laurie, and that's be consistent. It doesn't have to be perfect. Annie Laurie, your background with PR, you were on Capitol Hill, you've worked with, huge churches. What would you tell people, and what would you say in terms of, there's this feeling sometimes that I think goodness knows, I've had that feeling. We've all had the feeling that has to be perfect, or I needed the exact right thing to say. What would you say to someone that maybe that's what they're thinking? They're thinking, I want to do content, but I'm nervous. What if I say the wrong thing? What would you say to someone that's thinking that or feeling that?
I would just say you got to get started. You got to just get started. And I think that a lot of times we will spend our lives perfecting and tweaking things that we never put out there. And you have to eventually take the risk. You have to take the risk and put it out there. And I am the kind of person that wants it to be excellent. I've always worked for organizations and businesses where excellence was a core value. And absolutely, it's noble to work towards that and do everything you can to achieve that. But if it's keeping you paralyzed because it's not excellent yet, you need to just start. You need to just start, because a lot of times what happens when you get started is that you find yourself tweaking things and other people are giving input because they're seeing what you do. They want to help you make it better. And they see, I've got a friend who's just launching a blog and is just starting to put content out there that's very relevant and useful. But I'm able to look at that and see what you're saying is so important. There's some ways we can reorganize your content and pull out some headings, pull out some quotes, make it scannable, like just things that this person with brilliant content doesn't know to do. But until this person decided to put the content out there, I never had the chance to say, hey, I can help you make this better. And it's not hard for me to just send a quick email to say, hey, try doing these few things to punch this up a little bit. Like, we're in this sea where we have to be looking out for one another, helping one another, and I think that people want to do that. And having those relationships, we talked about this a little bit in our last call when we had with Bob on Tuesday. Like, this is the kind of stuff that people remember when things go back to normal. Who was there for me during that trying time? Who was there giving me a helpful tip or helping me make what I'm trying to do better? They're the ones going to be your big customers when things start to go back to normal or the new normal, when we're not in a crisis any longer.
Absolutely. And I want to give one quick example of a message and part of staying visible. So there's a guy that he's in Canada. He works with B2B companies and provides lead generation services. And his name's Matthew. And I'm not a client, but he's been very visible. He's been doing a lot of live videos. He's been on LinkedIn a lot. And I think I got an email from him yesterday. I got a LinkedIn message from him today. And even if this is automated, which I'm guessing it probably is, it's still the content of the message is really good. So I'm just going to read this real quick. He says, Steve, I hope you're safe and well. Crazy times. I hope your business is not getting hit too hard. So he's doing a good job. We talk about knowing where your customers are, knowing your audience. What is it that they're experiencing? So there's empathy. Empathy is huge. We've got to demonstrate empathy. It's part of being a guide. I hope your business is not getting hit too hard. I know businesses everywhere are suffering super scary times. So he's just being human. It's like, hey, these are difficult times. I get that. I'm acknowledging that. I just want to send a quick note to all my entrepreneur friends and let them know I'm here should you need an ear. Stay strong. And I think that's a great message because he's not trying to sell me anything. He's just being human. He's being visible. And I've had several conversations with Matthew, and that's genuine. That's not just a ploy to try to get my business. And so I think those are the kinds of communications: being genuine, being consistent, being proactive. Again, pick up the phone and call some people, send an email. There's all sorts of creative ways to do that. Now, I want to go ahead and because kind of building off of what you were saying a minute ago, I want to make the transition to number 4, and that's: are you thinking for the long term? Because no one knows how long this is going to last. There's different projections, but the reality is we know that a lot of businesses right now are either all the way down or they're down significantly. And so my question for anybody that's, for whoever's watching this right now or will watch this on the recording or listen to it on the podcast, how are you thinking for the long term? And right now, as we've already said, most people are in survival mode, and rightfully so. That's where the focus needs to be. And at the same time, I think there's an opportunity to also think about the long term. Because Amy Laura, and you said this just a few minutes ago, the things that we do now position us not only for now, but in the future. And I'm all for being in front of people, using marketing and tools and messaging that helps win more customers. But there has to be authenticity in it, a genuine desire to help people. And I think when we're thinking for the long term, we are genuinely interested in how do we help people. And I've talked to several business owners this week who have great perspective. One is a gentleman I talked to on Monday, and the example that he gave was it's like in a stock car race where there's been a crash on the course and the pace car comes out. And so everybody's going slow, everybody's stacked up behind the pace car. And he said, he said, that's how I'm viewing it. My business is down right now, and I don't know what the rest of the year is going to look like, but I want to use this time. I want to invest so that when the course has been cleared and the pace car comes off of the track. So in the business context, when things start to bounce back and people are talking now about sort of a V and we're going to hit a point and then things are going to start coming back. He says, when that happens, when the pace car leaves the track, I want to be ready. Like I want to be able to hit the gas and go. And so I think for us as a business owner, as a business leader, how are you using this time? Are you thinking for the long term? Because there's going to be an opportunity. We have this window of time that we can do some things now that put us in a better position when things do start to bounce back. So Aylar, what are your thoughts in terms of taking that long-term perspective?
Yeah, I think, it really depends too on what kind of business or organization that you're leading, and like you have to kind of take that into consideration. As you were talking, I was thinking about if you are in a community, serve your community. How can your business, especially if you're a small business in a community, how can you serve your community in a very real and authentic way, in a heartfelt way, not just for the good PR of it all? When the dust settles, people are going to remember that you were there, that you were helping, you were leading. That feels hard to do when you're on lockdown, but there are ways. There are ways to lead and participate in ways to serve the community. The church we belong to here in Memphis has been very proactive in organizing, and they've identified the most vulnerable in our congregation, and they are assessing those needs, whether it's for groceries or even just help with mow the lawn or something. They're connecting people who are able and willing to help with those needs. And I can send my husband to go mow a old widow's lawn, and they don't ever have to talk. Social distancing's fine, but there's still that sense of, when I was in need, like the church was there to serve. Like, I think that idea of serving, like we can all do that. We don't have to be a church or a nonprofit to take on that posture. And I think that's what people remember when the dust settles. They remember who was there leading and serving for the good of their neighbor, not just for the good of the sale.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And Sally Whitehorn is watching us on Facebook, and she's with the Memphis Business Journal. So, hey, Sally, thanks for tuning in. She made a really good point. She said, isn't there a worry that one will be conspicuous by their absence if they aren't out there? Yeah. They're not out there right now because they're holding back out of fear.
Yes.
So we found in 2008 that companies who kept up a presence emerged stronger and recovered faster than those trying to ramp up after.
Yes.
And Sally, that is a really good point. And I think, again, there's a tension, I think, or maybe it feels like there's this tension sometimes between right now I'm just trying to survive and at the same time, be strategic. Think about the long term. Yes, you've got to focus on taking care of things today. And at the same time, there's a unique opportunity. What can you do now that's going to make your business better in 6 weeks from now, whenever this all comes back? Because there's a good chance that some of your competitors they're just hunkering down. They're not looking for how they can be better positioned. And so one of the things that I would say, think about your messaging. Think about your messaging, not just now, but what is your messaging when things are kind of normal, when we're not dealing with something like we're dealing with right now? Is it clear? Do people understand the value that you provide? If you have a hard time communicating that, you're missing out on business. You're missing on opportunities. Is your website optimized? Is it set up to generate more business? And one of the things that I'll offer, Laura, you mentioned ways that we can serve people. I will offer two things to folks that are watching or that tune in later. One is a free 30-minute consultation, coaching session, brainstorming. just time to brainstorm. If you need some ideas, if you're kind of stuck and you're trying to think through how to craft that message for an email, social media, etc., grab 30 minutes. You can go to our website, wayfindmarketing.com, and you can go to the contact page or the schedule a discovery call. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and toss up my contact information. You can get in touch with me by email. The other thing that I would offer is a free website review. And that would be, we could do that on that 30-minute call. And that's where we'll just go through your website and identify, here's some things that you could change. Here's some things that could get you better results. And I'll mention this. I should have mentioned this sooner. If anybody wants me to do a review of their website now, I can pull that up and we can do a live review on this. Interested in that, just throw that in one of the comments and I'll be glad to do that. So I want to go back through the 4 things that we've talked about. So number 1, think about your customers. What do they need now? And then in terms of the long term, what are they going to need 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now? That's going to change, but thinking through that. Number 2 is your messaging. How does your messaging need to adapt based on where they are? If normally you're talking to people about thriving and now they're just focused on survival, you got to adjust. Number 3 is stay visible, stay in front of people, be authentic. People will figure it out in a heartbeat if someone is there just trying to be advantageous or trying to take advantage of a situation, as opposed to genuinely caring and genuinely wanting to help. And then the last piece is just think for the long term. I mentioned, I've talked to several business owners this week who that's their perspective. Yes, this is going to hurt, but at the same time, they're also looking at going, okay, I can't control these other things, but what I can do is make decisions now that are going to position me for the future so that I come out of this stronger, so that I can get in front of my competitors. So I would greatly encourage you to take that long-term perspective. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. So thank you for those that have been with us and watching. Again, if anybody has any questions before we log off here in just a couple of minutes, throw that in the comments. These videos, these live streams are going to be available as a recording we'll be getting these on the website before too much longer, but they're available on our YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and search for Wayfind Marketing, or you can go to wayfindmarketing.com/live. And there's a link there, both to our Facebook page and to our YouTube channel, where these recordings are going to be available. Next week, so again, as we've talked about, this live stream is something that we've started because we want to encourage, we want to equip business owners. So we're streaming on both Tuesdays and Fridays. Now, next week on Tuesday, we're going to have John Salaika. John is a business coach. He is a chairperson for Vistage, which is kind of it's a peer-to-peer group. I've been a part of John's group for almost 4 years. And we're going to talk about pivoting because a lot of people now are having to pivot. They're having to change. I wonder how many people really have not heard that word pivot until the last 2 weeks, because it's a lot of people are talking about it. But talking about mindset, how do we process through? How do we adapt? Because some businesses now are having to adapt. They're having to do things they've never done before, and out of the challenges, I think there's going to be some things that businesses are going to learn. They're going to make their businesses better. So John will be joining us Tuesday at noon. And then next Friday, this is not confirmed yet. So tentatively, I think what we're planning to talk about, we may have a guest. I'm not going to say who it is yet because I've got to confirm that. But we're going to talk about how do you a lot of businesses rely on networking, going to chamber events or being in a BNI group or going to industry events, trade shows, things like that. Well, there's no events right now. So how do we market? How do we network now? What does that look like? And so anyway, next Tuesday at noon, John Salaika, next Friday at noon, wayfindmarketing.com/live. We're going to be talking about how to network. What does that look like now? So Amy, Laurie, any final closing thoughts before we shut it down?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And again, I don't know if I've mentioned this. We also have this as a podcast. So if you just do a Google search for Wayfind Marketing Live Podcast, you'll find us. We're on Anchor FM. We're on Spotify, and we're on several other podcasting platforms as well. So we're excited about that. And again, we want to help encourage and equip you. If you've got something you'd like for us to talk about in an upcoming live stream, then by all means, please drop me a note. And hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Thanks, guys.